Hello everyone, I Radhika Khurana welcome you to yet another episode of Lawyer Speaks presented to you by Law Community, wherein we invite brilliant minds of legal fraternity so that we get to peek into their lives and get to know their stories. And today we have with us Akhil Anam Shetty, founder and president of Trishna Foundation, who is also working with Clinton Foundation flagship program CGIU for establishing the one of its kind program Proactive Human Rights Activism Center for benefit of tribal populace in Telangana. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Radhika.
Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Okay. So, starting with the very basic questions first. Everybody has some kind of deriving force why they pursue law, why they do anything else, what they do in their life. So, what was your deriving force? Why you choose to do law?
For me, I think law came as a very sudden option in my life because none of my family was very keen in me joining the law stream of career because they were very keen on me taking up engineering as a career option. I've even attempted for JEE, I've even attempted for all the state entrance exams for engineering. But then one day I had a sudden change that I had to fight it at house. Like I told them that no, I want to pursue law. And then that is the time I realized how difficult it is for people to pursue the career of their own choice. Because both my parents have been into sciences and they have also been law graduates, but they did not had so much of exposure as to what can the new age law of today's 5-year degrees and the premium law schools can give to one person in their life, because all that they have seen is law has always been denoted with the notion that it is the last choice of your career. Okay, so it took me a while to break that, and it took me a while to convince him. So that I had also actually lost an year in convincing that part. But I think I can't exactly tell what has driven me taking it up. But I think the environment around me, the social movements around me, I think one day I really wanted to stay connected to people. I think that is the moment when I decided, yes, let me do law.
Okay. You have, if I'm not wrong, you've actively engrossed yourself in human rights related programs during your law school. So, how did you develop interest in human rights things? Because not most of the lawyers want to take up human right kind of field these days because they're more into making money and not in helping people. So, how did you develop interest in that field?
Yeah, see, right since when I wanted to take up law, there was an option of BBA LLB and also BA LLB. Have never even considered BBA LLB. People have tried to brainwash me. People have tried to tell me that if you pursue BBA LLB, the more the exposure you'd get into the corporate field. But it never interested me. I think the kind of environment I was brought up in, the kind of mm, the exposure I was always given since my teens, I think it always asked me to work towards the conventional field of law, where actually human rights is one aspect which I've seen very connected to my own lifestyle, because I come from a place called Warangal in Telangana, which has actively seen social movements right since like almost 100 years. Okay, right since the Telangana armed struggle to the recent Telangana agitation, this city has hosted a lot of social movements. So, and I have seen all through my childhood, all through my teenage, so many of such social movements. So I thought that is what is law for me. Nothing else has been law. Actually, all this corporate opportunities, tax law, and these are the things that I have explored after going to the law school. After seeing that these are the very many career options I could also have. But this is something that I realized that this is why I have joined law. So let me not deviate into that. So my kind of specializations right from since my third and fourth year of law school has always been towards human rights, something or the other.
Even I'm from the same college as you are, so you basically my senior only. So you graduated last year, and I graduated this year. So do you think that college mostly prepares you for the corporate world and not for the litigation kind of world? Is like what I feel. What are your views about it?
Thanks for this revelation so that I can't bluff a lot about my college or my education. Okay. So, Symbiosis has always given me multitude of opportunities. I have been a part of its community legal care center right since my first year. In my second year, I had the opportunity to become the co-head, and in my third year, I have become the head. And all the members of the faculty, all my seniors, everybody has guided me in that fashion of how I can choose what I want to do. I have never been imposed that this is what you have to do. And Symbiosis as an institution, I would always praise it for the kind of encouragement and support it would give it to you both financially as well as logistically, because it is an institution full of resources. It is an institution full of connections. Okay, Symbiosis can take you to places. Symbiosis can give you what all you want, be it in the corporate field, be it in human rights, be it in criminal litigation or wherever. And when I wanted to pursue human rights, it has given me every single opportunity. It has given me all the kind of exposure that I needed in my undergraduate days.
So, if I'm not wrong, I read in an article, there was an article about you in Hindu, if I'm not wrong, that mentioned that you basically started your journey more towards human rights law when you first encountered some kind of incident when you visited Yerwada Central Jail. So, what was that incident about, and how did it really hit you?
Yeah, I'm sure you're also very much aware. Our community legal care center in Symbiosis Law School is directly connected to the Yerwada Central Prison, which is located very close to our law school. Okay, I used to go there every once or twice in a week, mostly during Fridays. Okay, so we used to meet the prisoners there. Okay, we used to talk to them. What are the conditions? Because we used to apply for bail petitions. Okay, a lot of compassionate bails, a lot of petty offenses, because everybody is aware in our prisons, the more than the convicted prisoners, the number of under trial prisoners is much higher, and it is going beyond capacity every single day. Okay, so for example, a single barrack which is supposed to hold 50 prisoners is holding at least 250 prisoners, five times its limit. So these are the conditions that has asked me to work initially on prison reforms. So I have written a lot to the governmental agencies through the law school. Then we have also tried to work with the District Legal Services Authority. So that is when I have seen the real part of it. And Pune's court administration, Pune's District Legal Services Authority, the kind of environment in Pune is so encouraging that I have not seen even in my home district that the kind of environment in Pune is not available here. Okay, I think that is all what has helped me to see my passion, see my scope in human rights. That is when it started. But actually, my triggering to pursue human rights as part of post graduation has started with one particular incident. My close friend, whom I have always grown up with in my hometown in Warangal, one day in the end of my third year, I think, or early fourth year, sometime there, he was once arrested by police back in home. Okay, because he was part of a social agitation, he's a part of a political agitation, he's a social activist. At that time, he wasn't related to any kind of political party, but he was arrested, and just with the promption and just with the promulgation of various political forces, he has been brutally tortured by the police. Okay, and that is the moment where I had actually gone to explore various legislations, various judgments. That is when I have read D.K. Basu versus State of West Bengal in depth. I have read books about it. Okay, I have written a 10-page complaint to the NHRC, asking them to take up the case, and then the investigation has started. So this all I have done in my third year. That is when I have seen how extrajudicial torture, extrajudicial killings, how police brutality, how custodial torture cases are so very common in India, and how we don't really care about them, how the mainstream media doesn't care about them. Unless it's a high profile case, I was really shocked, like how the Jairaj and Penix case in Tamil Nadu, Tuticorin, has come into light. But I see them every now and then. Okay, so when people are working on that aspect, you can actually see that this is a very common practice in India. Okay, that is when I have seen that. So I have seen my friends suffer, and even then, when even with the interference of the National Human Rights Commission, the police were not backstepping. So then we had to move the High Court with a writ of mandamus asking for asking them to intervene and direct the police to not interfere with his everyday living. So all this took me a lot of energy to see what it takes to be a human rights lawyer. You get threats, you get a lot of pressure from the political forces asking you to take a back step. So it is not a fetching field at the end of the day. It won't pay you money. When you're fighting a custodial torture case, nobody comes and gives you a lakh or two per day. So it definitely takes passion. It definitely takes your determination. It definitely takes your commitment. Only when you have these three, then you can be a successful human rights activist. I have decided I want to be one. That is when I saw that I have to apply for human rights courses. Let me be more qualified with human rights degree. That is when I decided let me go and pursue human rights LLM.
So, like, as you've personally suffered through all the, what I would say, like, what is all the, there is some kind of something is lacking in our laws, as I would quote. So, what, according to you, are the things that really need to be changed in these laws so that these kind of things doesn't happen?
People need to resist. Simple. We have laws, we have enough laws. It is just because that we do not resist enough, we are always suppressed. When you start resisting, when you start questioning the system, beyond a point, nobody can do anything. Like when you stay back, when you stick to that cause, when you fight with the cause, when you move the court, even court can't do beyond beyond a point. Because now of course, you can quote some examples where courts are blatantly ignoring the certain provisions of law, because even Supreme Court in certain cases, you see that what they have done seems absolutely ridiculous for few experts in law. Of course, it's an interpretational issue. A lot of people interpret it differently. My way of interpretation could not be others' way of interpretation. But I do definitely feel that we have enough laws to protect and safeguard our interests, especially in the aspect of human rights. All we need to do is make use of them, make people aware of them, and put them to use. We have to resist the oppression. Only then we can actually make use of those laws.
Okay, so apart from human rights, like, how did you develop interest in politics? Like, I read it in your LinkedIn profile that you have done quite a few internships during your law school. One with Telangana State Assembly elections as a political consultant, and the other one was with, if I'm not wrong, with the State Assembly of Telangana only. So, was it this incident that why you got into politics, or otherwise?
See, if you see, I'm not actively involved in politics, direct politics, but I've always been this kind of policy suggester, like an advisor to in the political area, because right since my intermediate days, like 11th and 12th, I've been actively involved in student unions. Okay, majorly left unions. Okay, left-wing student unions, which has actually, and also my family belongs to this left ideology. So I can actually call it a pseudo-political family, which has not been into active politics, but yeah, that is what we discuss on our dining table. That's what I can say. Okay, so I've always been brought up with this kind of environment. So and when you're involved into social movements, politics come as an intermixture. Okay, politics is never seen separately. And maybe today's power politics is completely different. Businessmen entering politics, businessmen using politics as an investment in their business is a different aspect. But when you see the real politics, they're actually involved with social movements. They're involved with masses. So since I've been involved with the masses, politics came as an intermixture. That's it. There's no special interest towards politics. And when you ask me about how have I worked as a political consultant, that also, some people have asked me that why don't you be an advisor to this particular candidate in this election, and automatically I became a political consultant. That is a name they have given it to me later on, but I have never been a fancy political consultant in the first place. I've just been constantly advising 2 to 3 constituencies, and I have formed a team because of the network of student unions that I have. We have picked up few people, have appointed them on various constituencies. That is when I started being paid also as a freelance political consultant. And the good name came when all of these 3 constituents won. And these three being the opposition candidates, like these were not the ruling party candidates. Okay, still we have managed to win those seats. That is when I have been actually identified as a political consultant in this area.
So, coming to the later years of your life, so when you decided to choose LLM in University of Edinburgh instead of LSE and King's College, so do you feel there was any difference, or at any moment of time you regretted that decision? No, I should have gone to LSE or King's. I should have not dropped those.
Okay, first and foremost, I am against this argument that LSE or King's is better than Edinburgh. Okay, because even I don't know what defines it. It's a much older institution than LSE or King's, and it's a much reputed institution. The kind of academia, the kind of alumni it holds, or the kind of exposure it would give to one person, I only think it's much more higher than any of these institutions. But the fact remains that LSE and King's are more popular, at least in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, that could be for various reasons. LSE or King's hold a lot of summer schools. They hold a lot of online courses. They are much more known in our social circles. People who have never even heard of Edinburgh definitely know London School of Economics. I think that is why this thing became known to everyone that okay, Akhil rejected LSE and King's and went to Edinburgh. But I wasn't prepared to hear this because I never thought that I'm rejecting a much more higher institution for Edinburgh, because I've always seen Edinburgh as a equal or even better institution than LSE, because everybody knows what is its international ranking. It's a 500-year-old institution, produced a lot of good alumni in its record compared to any other institution in UK, at par with Oxford and Cambridge as well. So my reason why, if you ask me why did I refuse LSE, is because first of all, I think my merit wasn't enough for me to get human rights specialization in LSE, because for some reason LSE's human rights specialization is much more popular than that of Edinburgh's. I have to accept that my academic merit wasn't enough for me to secure a place at LSE's human rights. So I was offered a different course at LSE. Okay, so when I was offered a different course, of course, I did not just want to go for the sake of LSE. Okay, so that is the reason why I have refused LSE. And secondly, the King's that I have refused, this King's was a general LLM offer that I have got. They do not have a human rights specialization at all. I've applied for it and I have gotten a general LLM offer. So when I had to compare, my first preference was, of course, Edinburgh with human rights. And the professor who was teaching at Edinburgh, I've been reading her writings since almost 2 to 3 years. So I knew of her. So that is the reason why I've always preferred Edinburgh.
Okay, so I guess the first part of your answer will clear the misconception that Indians have in their mind. Okay, so you've also been to TEDx talks related to role of youth in politics. So how was that experience?
See, I think all of these experiences guide me to the same destination, because politics, I've always seen, I always say also that politics is something that you cannot take out of your lives, whoever you are. Politics is always involved in every single person's lives, directly or indirectly. Whether you're pursuing politics or not pursuing politics, you're definitely affected by the decisions of politicians. You're definitely affected by the decisions of the legislature. Okay, so if you of all the organs of a particular democracy, which is the highest or decision maker, is the legislature at the end of the day, because it is elected by the people. People are the supreme in any democratic country. So the reason why I wanted to always promote politics is because unless you go get into it and try to change it, nothing can change. And we have seen quite a few examples also. We have seen certain governments which have come up with new policies. For example, the Delhi, you can see, of course, I have a lot of ideological differences with even with the Delhi government, the kind of way, the kind of pseudo bourgeois politics that they follow. Okay, but somewhere or the other, you should have some ideology. You should be driven by certain ideology to pursue politics. So that is what I always tell. Don't see politics as a political investment. Don't see politics as a business investment. See politics as a way where you can make certain change to the society. That is the reason why I have always promoted people joining politics. I was always interested in student union activism because student union activism is very key. Right now, a lot of states have curbed student union elections. For example, Maharashtra. I have always been critical of the way student council is elected in Symbiosis Law School, Pune. I've been very vocal about it as well. That is the reason why I have never even taken an active role in that kind of selection and not an election. Okay, I call it a selection process and not an election process. So when it's a selection process, there is no reason to be call it a democratic process. So that is the reason why, again, as soon as I've been out of Symbiosis, where the process has not been so democratic in that way, when I went to Edinburgh, I've been again part of the active direct political movement. Okay, in the very few months itself, I have been made part of the Labour Party, student wing, as well as the socialist parties in Edinburgh, because they really care about ideology. Unlike in India, like India, left ideology is sometimes given at your face as an insult. Okay, in at least in popular opinion, that is what I've seen. But this particular ideology, the Marxist school of thought or the left school of thought, it is given much importance in such schools, and people are also very fond of it. Okay, I've been again involved with direct politics, direct student politics back in Edinburgh, and I've even won the election, as you know. Okay, so even today, if somebody asks me, that is what I frankly say: everybody should become a part of the political system. Everybody, either you're contesting election or going and voting it. Everybody should be a direct part of the political system.
So you have been directly related with the Clinton Foundation, and you've also set up a Center for Right Activism at Warangal. So would you like to brief us about that?
Yeah, as I told you, this is again a human rights project. I have seen people suffer around me. As I told you, what should we do to change the situations of custodial torture, police brutality, and all? As I told that we have to resist. So in order to resist, we need to know the laws. We need to be aware of the laws. So this particular initiative, which is called Center for Rights Activism, is focused at the tribal populace in this region. Telangana, the northern Telangana belt, the border region of Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, and Telangana. This is a belt which sees a lot of tribal population. That is where a lot of Maoist Naxal insurgency is also there. Okay, so due to this left-wing insurgency, there's a lot of tussle between police forces and the militants. In this tussle, the people who are being sandwiched is the normal tribal populace. Okay, so I have seen them, like they come to Warangal every now and then for healthcare needs, for buying certain goods and all. So I've seen them closely since my childhood, and I also have been to those villages. So I understand what are the problems that they are facing. I understand how forest officials sometimes show extra unreasonable force upon them. Okay, they snatch away their land. Okay, there's a lot of land issue also happening in this region. So I thought this has to be addressed on a large scale. This cannot be. At the end of the day, as a person, Akhil NMCT can just go to one singular person or 10 people and help them. But there are thousands of people. It's a common problem there. So this needs a bigger cause. This needs a bigger force to fight it. That is when I have applied and have been part of the Clinton Foundation's initiative, Clinton Global Initiative University. This is again the opportunity that I have gotten at the Edinburgh University itself. I have written it to them. I have given a lot of selection. I have gone through a lot of selection process. I have given a lot of interviews. I have tried to convince them why this has to be set up in India. Why? Because it's a sensitive issue again. It is something which you're going head to head with the government. Okay, so everybody was skeptical of approving this particular project, but I think I was fortunate to have this granted. I was fortunate that a big force, a big international force like Clinton Foundation has come forward to take up this cause. And right now, due to this pandemic, all the work has been stalled. But very soon as things get back to normal, I'm expecting things to go back to go back with full force.
Right, and we wish the same, and I hope many students get inspired from your story and your experience and work in same field. Okay, so coming to a last question, what advice would you like to give to the students who are pursuing law right now? Like, how should they strategize their time during law school?
See, during law school, I will not, like everybody else, I will not encourage everybody to come and take up my path of line. Corporate lawyers are also required for this country. Okay, criminal lawyers are required for this country, civil lawyers are required for this country, tax lawyers are required, constitutional lawyers are required. So what I advise them is to pursue their passion. Please don't go in the mainstream. Please don't go with what everybody else is doing. Stop comparing whether you have gotten a placement or not. I personally, I haven't been through a single placement process during my undergrad. Okay, but although I have, after my political consultant experience, I have been offered two very good positions by two major political consultancy firms, cross-party advocacy firms. But I have refused them for this reason of my masters, or else maybe I would have taken them up. Okay, so please do not go with the mainstream notion of how law school has to be. Also, many people who are joining law school try to ask this question: how are the placements at the law school? No, law school is not for placements. And also, please remember this fact: a law school will not teach you the law. Law keeps changing every day. Law keeps changing every hour. The law school is supposed to teach you how to interpret the law and how to apply the law. So this is one point I want everybody to remember. Please don't go to law school to study the law. Go to law school to understand what law is, why law is there, and how to interpret that particular law and how to apply that particular law in your everyday situations. It could be any law. So the final line that I want to say is try to pursue your passion, whatever it is, whatever field of law it is. Even if you want to diverge from it and go back to pursuing something else, fashion designing, I know a lot of people who are pursuing fashion designing after law. I know people who are pursuing baking after law. Okay. So if you really think that your passion lies there, go back to that. Please don't get stuck at, because we don't need bad lawyers also.
Okay, so this was a very informative session, and I hope many students will learn something from this. And thank you so much, sir, for joining us today, for sharing your experience and your stories. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best for your future.